The Columbia Law acceptance letter felt heavier than it looked, sitting in my hands. I was 22, and for years, this piece of paper had been the impossible dream. Every late-night shift at the diner, every weekend tutoring gig, every skip social event, it had all been for this. I'd worked my ass off, not just for the grades, but for the money. My parents had set up a college fund for me when I was little, and while I knew it wouldn't cover everything, it was supposed to be the foundation. The big chunk. Before continuing, please share your location in the comments below. I rushed over to my dad's office, the acceptance letter clutched tight. Bowen Sullivan, my father was 52, a businessman who always talked about family loyalty, especially when it benefited him. He was on the phone, leaning back in his leather chair, looking important. I waited, buzzing with excitement. "Dad, look!" I practically shoved the letter at him the second he hung up. He took it, his eyes scanning the bold Columbia Law letterhead. A slow smile spread across his face. "Well, Sloan, that's fantastic. I knew you had it in you." He clapped me on the shoulder. "My smart girl." "I know, right?" I grinned, the relief and joy washing over me. "So I just need to get the financial aid stuff sorted, and then the college fund. I mean, it should cover a good chunk of the first year, right? I can figure out the rest with loans and scholarships." His smile faltered. He cleared his throat, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Ah, the fund, yes. About that, kiddo." He gestured for me to sit. My stomach tightened. This wasn't the proud dad moment I'd envisioned. There's been a temporary reallocation. "Relocation?" I repeated, my voice flat. He leaned forward, trying to sound reasonable. "Look, Sloan, it's not gone. It's just on loan to Haley." My cousin, Haley Sullivan. She was 23, a year older than me, and the self-proclaimed star of the family. From the moment she could hold a phone, she'd been convinced she was destined for fame. Every family gathering, every holiday, it was always about Haley and her latest project. When I was 10, she got a brand new camera for her YouTube channel, while I got a used bike. When I was 16, struggling with calculus, she was getting praise for her visionary Instagram filters. It was always Haley. "Haley?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "My college fund?" "Why?" "Her podcast, Haley Unfiltered." "It was struggling, Sloan," he said, as if this was a perfectly normal, logical explanation. "She needed a significant investment to really get it off the ground, to buy new equipment, pay for marketing, get some big-name guests. Your Aunt Poppy and I agreed it was a smart move. She's a star in the making, Sloan. She just needed a little push." "A little push?" I felt a cold dread spread through me. "How much?" He picked up a pen, twirling it. "Well, it was a substantial amount. We needed to act fast. It was a time-sensitive opportunity." He paused, then finally looked me in the eye. "There's $17.32 left." $17.32. My entire future, reduced to pocket change. The number hit me like a physical blow. All those years, all that sacrifice, all that trust, gone for Haley's podcast. My mind reeled. It wasn't just the money. It was the blatant favoritism, the casual disregard for my dreams. I remembered being 12, winning a regional science fair, and my dad barely looking up from his phone while he was on a call with Poppy, gushing about Haley's latest dance recital. Or when I got into the advanced placement classes in high school, and the family group chat was still buzzing about Haley's viral TikTok dance that got 500 views. I was the responsible one, the smart one, the one who worked hard. Haley was the one who got everything handed to her, the one who was constantly propped up no matter how flimsy her ambitions. Aunt Poppy, 47, Haley's mother and my dad's sister walked in then, her face alight. "Bowen, darling, have you told Sloan the good news about Haley's podcast? It's really taking off." She beamed at me, completely oblivious, or perhaps willfully ignorant, of the devastation she was witnessing. "Haley's going to be huge, Sloan. Just huge. And it's all thanks to your father's foresight." "Foresight?" I finally found my voice, sharp and thin. "You emptied my college fund for a podcast? Do you even know how much law school costs?" Bowen sighed, running a hand over his bald spot. "Sloan, don't be dramatic. It's an investment in family. Haley will pay it back. When she's famous, she'll make millions. It's a loan, not a gift." "A loan I didn't agree to, for money that was mine." I shot back, my voice rising. "And what if she doesn't? What if her podcast flops like everything else she's ever tried?" "Sloan," Poppy gasped, clutching her chest, "how can you say such a thing about your cousin? She's working so hard." Just then, Haley herself breezed in, phone in hand, already talking into it. "Oh my God, I just got off the phone with this brand and they're totally interested in a collab. This is it, guys, I can feel it." She was 23, dressed in designer athleisure, looking perfectly put together, oblivious to the storm she'd caused. She finally noticed my furious face. "Oh, hey, Sloan, what's up?" "My college fund, Haley. That's what's up," I snapped. Her eyes widened, a flicker of something that might have been guilt, quickly replaced by practiced remorse. "Oh, right. Yeah, about that. Look, I'm so sorry, Sloan. I really am. But it was, a now or never thing. And Dad and Aunt Poppy said it was fine, it's just a loan. I'll totally pay you back. As soon as I blow up, you'll be the first person I buy a private jet for. Or, a really nice car. You're smart, Sloan. You'll figure something out." Her words, dripping with fake sincerity and delusional promises, were the final insult. My rage, which had been simmering, suddenly solidified into something cold and hard. Figure something out? Oh, I would. I would figure out something they'd never see coming. The sting of Haley's final dismissive words echoed in my ears long after I'd stormed out of my dad's office. "You're smart, Sloan. You'll figure something out." Yeah, I would, but it wouldn't be for my benefit, not in the way they expected. The first few days were a blur of raw anger and cold, hard reality. My lease on the apartment near campus was up in a month, and with no college fund, staying there was impossible. I packed up my meager belongings and moved back into the cramped one-bedroom apartment I'd shared with a roommate for the last 2 years, now entirely on my own. It was a shoebox, but it was mine, and it was cheaper. Columbia law felt like a cruel joke. I spent hours online, hunched over my laptop, applying for every emergency scholarship, every grant, every obscure loan program I could find. Most required essays about hardship, which, for once, I had in spades. But the deadlines were tight and the competition fierce. It felt like shouting into the void. To make ends meet, I doubled down on work. My diner shifts went from 4 to 6 a week, and I picked up more hours tutoring high schoolers in math and science. My days started before dawn and ended long after midnight, fueled by lukewarm coffee and a simmering resentment that kept me going. I was 22, exhausted and bitter. My dream was slipping away, replaced by the mundane grind of survival. One night, after a particularly grueling shift, I found myself scrolling through social media, a habit I usually avoided. And then, like a moth to a flame, I found myself on Haley's dormant Instagram page. Her last post was from 3 months ago, a heavily filtered selfie with a caption about taking a much-needed creative break. The comments were a mix of sycophantic praise, pity, and a few outright questions about why her podcast, Haley Unfiltered, had just stopped. I clicked through to her podcast's official page. It was a graveyard. The last episode had been posted 6 months ago. I remembered my dad and Poppy gushing about how it was about to blow up right around the time they loaned Haley my money. Clearly it hadn't. I started digging. I found old articles, press releases, sponsor announcements. I listened to a few of her episodes, cringing at the vapid content, the endless self-promotion, the thinly veiled attempts at drama that always fell flat. She talked about toxic friendships without naming names, hinted at industry betrayals, and rambled on about her journey to authenticity while clearly faking every emotion. It was all facade, no substance. I tracked down her old sponsors, a few small beauty brands, a subscription box service, a dubious-looking wellness tea. Most of them had pulled out before the podcast went dark. I found forums, Reddit threads, and TikTok comments where people speculated about her sudden disappearance. Some fans were genuinely concerned, others were just curious. There was a small, loyal core, mostly young girls, who still believed in the Haley Sullivan brand. They posted miss you comments and come back emojis. That's when the idea sparked. What if I could make Haley famous? Not for her vapid content, but for something else entirely. Something that would expose the rot beneath the surface. My dad and Poppy wanted her to be a star. Fine. She'd be a star. A supernova, burning bright before collapsing into a black hole. It was risky. Probably illegal. Definitely morally gray. But the thought of it, the sheer poetic justice, sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. I didn't want my money back anymore. I wanted to watch them all squirm. I knew just the person to help me. Flynn McGregor. He was 25, an old friend from high school, a quiet kid who'd always been obsessed with computers. He was a freelance coder now, specializing in SEO and digital marketing, but I knew he dabbled in less conventional tech solutions. He was discreet, brilliant, and owed me a favor from that time I helped him pass senior year English. I sent him a cryptic text, "Need your tech wizardry. Big project, confidential." He replied almost immediately, "Intriguing." Coffee? We met at a quiet cafe near my apartment a few days later. I laid it all out for him. The stolen college fund, Haley's failed podcast, my family's sickening favoritism. I watched his expression shift from polite interest to genuine shock, then to a flicker of understanding. "So, you want to revive her podcast?" he asked, stirring his coffee. "Not exactly revive it," I said, leaning forward. "I want to take it over. Ghost her digital presence. Get admin access to her accounts, her old podcast hosting, her social media. I want to make it look like she's back, but it won't be her. It'll be me." He raised an eyebrow, a slow smile playing on his lips. "That's ambitious and potentially very messy. You're talking about identity manipulation, digital impersonation. Why?" "Because they think I'm just going to roll over," I said, my voice low and steady. "They think I'll figure something out while they celebrate Haley's success. I want to give them success, a very specific kind of success, the kind that comes crashing down." Flynn took a long sip of his coffee, his eyes thoughtful. "Okay, I get the motivation. But this isn't just about getting access. This is about maintaining a persona, creating content, managing a public narrative, all without her knowing." "I know," I said. "I've been studying her. Her voice, her mannerisms, her stupid catchphrases. I can do it. I just need the keys to the kingdom." He leaned back, considering. "It's a lot of work, a lot of risk. How far do you want this to go? My gaze met his, cold and unwavering, until she wishes I'd just let her sink. Flynn was good, better than good. Within a week of our coffee meeting, he'd managed to gain administrative access to Haley's old podcast hosting platform, her dormant Instagram, and even her long-forgotten TikTok account. He used some clever social engineering and a few old publicly available data breaches to guess her ridiculously simple passwords. Apparently, Haley Fangirl 23 was still her go-to for everything. Classic Haley. All right, you're in, Flynn said, leaning back from his multiple monitors in his cluttered home office. But remember, any content you put out, any interaction, it has to be her. The voice, the tone, the visuals. One slip up, and this whole thing collapses. I nodded, already ahead of him. For the past 2 weeks, I'd been living and breathing Haley. I'd rewatched every single one of her old YouTube vlogs, listened to her podcast episodes on repeat, and scrolled through hundreds of her Instagram stories. I studied her vocal inflections, her slightly nasal laugh, the way she'd trail off sentences, her overuse of like and literally. I practiced her gestures in front of my bathroom mirror, the hair flip, the wide-eyed innocent look, the pout. It was nauseating, but I was determined. I was 22, and this was my new full-time job, layered on top of my actual full-time jobs. My apartment, usually a quiet sanctuary, became my studio. I bought a cheap ring light and a decent microphone, the kind Haley would have scoffed at, but that would pass for authentic to her audience. I experimented with filters, mimicking the soft, slightly oversaturated look she favored. The plan was simple. Feed the beast. Haley's fans were hungry for content, and her family was desperate for her to be famous. I would give them what they wanted, but with a twist. I wouldn't just revive her old content. I'd twist it, infuse it with just enough truth to make it believable, and enough manufactured drama to make it go viral. I started with the podcast. Flynn helped me set up a voice modulator, a subtle one that would just slightly alter my pitch and add a hint of Haley's breathy quality, making it harder to distinguish from her actual voice, especially with background music and sound effects. I recorded a short, cryptic audio message and posted it to her dormant podcast feed, titled, "A Message from Haley, I'm Back and I'm Unfiltered." It was just 30 seconds of me, as Haley saying, "Hey guys, it's me. I know it's been a minute. A lot has happened, more than you know. I'm ready to talk, really talk. Are you?" The response was immediate. Within hours, the comment section on her old Instagram post exploded. "OMG, she's back. Haley, we missed you. What happened?" Then came the first full episode. I chose a bait title, "Why I Lied About the Trolls." In it, I, as Haley, tearfully confessed to exaggerating online harassment for sympathy, hinting at a dark period and a toxic inner circle that encouraged her to fabricate drama. It was a half-truth, based on my observations of her past behavior, but spun into a narrative of vulnerability and redemption. The internet ate it up. TikTok and Reddit threads exploded. "Haley Sullivan is back and she's spilling tea. Is this for real or just another influencer stunt? Who are the toxic friends?" People speculated wildly, dissecting every word, every carefully placed pause. The engagement metrics Flynn was tracking were through the roof. I followed up with the truth behind the sponsorship scandal, where Haley confessed to taking money from a dubious wellness brand without fully vetting their product, again blaming bad advice and naivety. This one was pure fabrication, designed to make her seem relatable and a victim of the cutthroat influencer world. It worked. Brands started reaching out to Flynn, who was managing the Haley email account, expressing concern and interest in future collaborations. I kept feeding the fire. I posted carefully curated, candid photos on Instagram, showing Haley looking thoughtful, a little sad, but resilient. I wrote long, rambling captions about personal growth and finding my true voice. I even hinted at fake relationships and toxic friendships, weaving in details from Haley's actual life, but twisting them to fit my narrative. For instance, Haley had a fleeting crush on a minor reality TV star once. I turned it into a deeply manipulative relationship that almost broke her. It was all designed to generate buzz, to make her seem like a phoenix rising from the ashes, but with a trail of manufactured drama in her wake. My father, Bowen, and Aunt Poppy, 47, started noticing. I saw their comments on Haley's posts, gushing about her bravery and authenticity. They had no idea it was me, Sloane, the one they dismissed, pulling the strings. It was sickening and exhilarating. Then came the big one. An email landed in the Haley inbox forwarded by Flynn. It was from a talent management agency, a fairly reputable one, expressing interest in signing Haley, given her incredible comeback and renewed public interest. They wanted to schedule a meeting, and then, a few days later, another email. A past sponsor, a major beauty brand that had pulled out of Haley's original podcast, offered a huge deal for a brand relaunch. They wanted Haley Unfiltered to be the face of their new campaign. I stared at the screen, a cold smile spreading across my face. This was it. The hook was set. The emails from the talent agency and the beauty brand were a game changer. This wasn't just about getting a few clicks anymore. This was real money, real contracts, and that meant it was time for the next phase of the plan. I called Flynn immediately. "We need to talk about the money," I told him. "All of it." He came over to my apartment, looking a little more tired than usual. He was 25, and I knew he was juggling his own clients, but he hadn't complained once about the extra work. "Okay, so the talent agency wants a 15% cut. The beauty brand is offering a 6-figure deal for a year-long campaign, plus royalties on product sales. This is big, Sloane." "Exactly," I said, pacing my tiny living room. "Too big to just let it sit in an account that Haley or my dad could get their hands on. We need to make it untouchable and public." Flynn's eyes lit up. A nonprofit? Something in her name, but legally structured so she can't touch the principal? "Bingo," I confirmed. "Something that sounds good. Something that aligns with her new, authentic brand. Something about supporting creators, mental health, whatever buzzwords she'd use." Over the next few days, Flynn worked his magic. He found a pro bono legal service that helps set up nonprofit organizations for emerging artists, and we used a burner email to contact them, posing as Haley Sullivan's legal team. We drafted a mission statement, registered the name Voices Unfiltered, and set up the legal framework. The stated purpose was to empower emerging digital creators with mental health resources and ethical guidance. It was perfect. It sounded exactly like something the new Haley would champion. The crucial part was the legal structure. All incoming revenue from the podcast, sponsorships, and future brand deals would be legally bound to flow directly into the Voices Unfiltered Trust. Haley would be the public face, the founder, but she would have no direct access to the funds. The trust would be managed by an independent board, which, for now, was just Flynn and a shell company he set up, and the money could only be dispersed for the stated charitable purposes, not for personal gain. It was all above board, legally sound, and completely out of Haley's reach. "It's done," Flynn announced a week later, sending me the official registration documents. "Every cent that comes in from now on goes straight into the trust." She's effectively working for free, building a charitable empire she can't control. A slow, Satisfied smile spread across my face. This was better than just taking her money. This was making her a figurehead for her own downfall. Meanwhile, the family group chat was a flurry of activity. Bowen, 52, and Poppy, 47, were practically bursting with pride. Bowen, so proud of Haley. Her podcast comeback is incredible. Just spoke to a contact at the talent agency. They're really impressed. Poppy, my little star. I always knew she'd make it. All that hard work is finally paying off. Bowen, it just goes to show, Sloan. Sometimes you have to take risks for family. This investment is really paying off. That last message was directed at me. A subtle jab, a reminder of what they'd done. They thought they were being vindicated. They thought their investment was flourishing. The validation I'd craved my whole life, the recognition for my intelligence and tenacity, was finally coming from my father, but he was directing it at my cousin's fabricated success. It was a bitter pill, but also a potent motivator. I responded to Bowen's message with the simple, "That's great, Dad." My fingers itched to type more, to scream, but I held back. Not yet. The next step was to really stir the pot. The Haley persona needed to become even more sympathetic, more vulnerable. I decided to make her a victim, not just of toxic friends, but of her own family. I drafted a fake email, carefully worded to sound like Haley, and sent it to a major gossip blog known for breaking influencer news. The subject line was, "Exclusive, Influencer Haley Sullivan's Secret Battle, Exploited by Family for Fame." The email, supposedly from Haley, hinted at the immense pressure she was under, the unrealistic expectations from her family, and how she felt used and manipulated to maintain a certain image. It was vague enough to be plausible, but pointed enough to raise eyebrows. I included a fabricated anecdote about a family member pushing her to take a sponsorship she didn't want, and another about being forced to maintain a public facade of happiness when she was secretly struggling. The blog picked it up within hours. The story blew up. Haley Sullivan's shocking confession, family exploitation? The comments were a mix of outrage and sympathy. Her fan base rallied around her, condemning the unnamed family members. Other influencers chimed in, sharing their own struggles with family pressure. Sponsors went nuts. They loved the drama, the vulnerability, the authenticity. The beauty brand that had offered the big deal contacted Flynn, saying they wanted to capitalize on the buzz. They suggested a live Q&A session, a chance for Haley to connect directly with her fans and address the rumors. Flynn forwarded the request to me. "A live show, Sloan. That's a whole new level of risk. Your voice modulator, your mannerisms, you'd have to be perfect." I thought about it for a long moment. The risk was immense, but the potential for public exposure, for setting the final trap, was irresistible. This was the moment to make her a martyr, right before I pulled the rug out. "Agree to it," I told Flynn, my voice steady. "Tell them Haley is ready to face her truth." The day of the live stream felt like the longest day of my life. I was 22 and my hands were clammy, not from fear, but from the sheer exhilarating tension of it all. This was it, the public stage, the moment where Haley's carefully constructed, Sloan-orchestrated comeback would either soar or begin its spectacular descent. I had spent the last week meticulously preparing. Flynn, 25, had set up a secure, encrypted connection for the live stream, routing it through multiple servers to mask my true location. He'd also fine-tuned the voice modulator, making it seamless, almost undetectable. It would slightly deepen my voice and add Haley's signature breathy quality, but it was subtle enough that no one would suspect it wasn't her. My apartment, usually a mess of textbooks and diner uniforms, was transformed into a makeshift studio. The ring light was positioned perfectly, casting a soft glow that mimicked Haley's usual aesthetic. I wore a simple pastel-colored top, something Haley would choose for a vulnerable moment. My hair was styled in loose waves, just like hers. I even practiced her nervous fidgets, the way she'd tuck her hair behind her ear or bite her lip. I had a script prepared, a list of pre-written answers to anticipated questions. The beauty brand's marketing team had sent over a list of softball questions they wanted Haley to answer, focusing on her journey, her authenticity, and, of course, their products. I was ready. The live stream started. I sat in front of the camera, forcing a soft, slightly melancholic smile. The chat box exploded with comments. "Haley, you're so brave. We love you. Tell us everything," I started, voice modulated, carefully delivering my pre-scripted answers. I talked about finding my voice, about toxic influences, about learning to trust myself again. It was all vague, emotionally charged, and utterly meaningless, but the audience was eating it up. I even managed to weave in a few subtle plugs for the beauty brand, just enough to keep them happy. Then came the Q&A segment. The brand's moderator was feeding me questions from the chat, mostly the softballs. I was cruising, feeling a twisted sense of triumph. This was too easy. And then, a question popped up that wasn't on the list. It was from a user named Shiloh Fangirl. I recognized the name. Shiloh Nichols, 19, was one of Haley's most devoted fans, a sweet, naive girl who often posted gushing comments on Haley's old content. I had promised her a live shout-out earlier, a small, manipulative gesture to keep her engaged. The moderator, flustered, tried to skip it, but the question had already been highlighted by the system. It flashed across my screen. "What would you say to your cousin Sloane, who gave up everything so you could pursue your dream?" My blood ran cold. My carefully constructed composure shattered. The question was so specific, so utterly unexpected. It wasn't a softball. It was a direct hit. It was a reminder of the very real, very painful betrayal that had set this whole thing in motion. I froze. The voice modulator was still on, but my mind raced. What would Haley say? What could she possibly say to that? The new, authentic Haley couldn't just dismiss it. She had to acknowledge it, spin it. A wave of pure, unadulterated rage, the kind I usually kept locked down, surged through me. It was raw, unfiltered, and for a split second, I almost let it show. My jaw tightened. "Oh," I said, forcing a breathy, slightly choked sound. "Shiloh, that's a really personal question." I paused, letting the silence hang, letting the audience lean in. This was a moment. I had to use it. "Sloane. My cousin Sloane." I forced a sigh, a heavy, burdened sound. "You know, I always envied Sloane. She was always so smart, so focused, so together." I made it sound like a flaw, a coldness. I always felt like I was living in her shadow, trying to find my own path. I leaned into the camera, my eyes welling up, a trick I'd perfected from watching Haley's old videos. And sometimes, when you're trying to find your path, you make mistakes. You hurt people even if you don't mean to. You have to follow your path even if it hurts people. I let a single, well-timed tear roll down my cheek. I just hope Sloane can understand that sometimes you have to prioritize your dreams even when it's hard. And I'm so sorry for any pain I caused. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. I had just publicly acknowledged the loan, twisted it into a narrative of my jealousy and Haley's unavoidable path to greatness, and then delivered a fake apology that shifted all the blame back onto me, the victim. The chat was flooded with "poor Haley" and "Sloan sounds like a hater." The moderator quickly jumped in, clearly relieved I hadn't gone off the rails, and steered the conversation back to the beauty products. I finished the live stream, my heart pounding, a grim satisfaction settling over me. I had turned the knife. Right after the show ended, as I was still disconnecting the equipment, my phone buzzed. It was my dad, Bowen, calling. His name flashed on the screen, an angry red beacon. I answered, my voice still slightly modulated, just in case. "Dad, what's up?" "Sloan, what the hell was that?" His voice was tight with panic. "Haley just called me screaming. She says she didn't do that interview. She says someone's impersonating her. Haley just called me screaming. She says she didn't do that interview. Haley says someone's impersonating her." My father's voice, Bowen, 52, crackled with barely contained panic through the phone. I allowed myself a small, satisfied smirk. This was it. The first crack in their carefully constructed delusion. "Dad, what are you talking about?" I feigned confusion, keeping my voice just a little too innocent. "Haley just finished her live Q&A. It was huge. Everyone's talking about it." "No, Sloan, you don't understand," he insisted, his voice rising. "Haley said she was at the mall with Poppy. She said she hasn't posted anything in weeks. She saw the live stream on her friend's phone and freaked out." "Well, that's weird," I said, drawing out the words. "Maybe she's just overwhelmed with the comeback. You know how she gets." "This isn't overwhelmed, Sloan. This is serious. She's talking about identity theft. Poppy's threatening to call the police." "The police?" I scoffed, letting a hint of my true self slip through. "For a podcast? Dad, come on. Haley's just being dramatic. Again." He hung up abruptly, probably to deal with the actual Haley. I disconnected the voice modulator and let out a long, slow breath. The trap was sprung. Within the hour, my phone started buzzing with calls from Poppy, 47, and Haley herself. I let them all go to voicemail. Their frantic, angry messages were music to my ears. They were finally realizing they'd been played. I called Flynn, 25. "It's happening," I told him. "They're panicking. Haley knows." "Good," he said, his voice calm. "I've been prepping the final release. We need to hit them hard and fast before they can coordinate a counter-narrative." The next morning, the storm broke. Poppy and Bowen confronted Haley, who was, predictably, in hysterics. She pulled up the live stream, the podcast episodes, the Instagram posts, all of it, screaming that it wasn't her. She swore she hadn't touched her accounts in months. "But you signed the waivers, Haley," I imagined my dad shouting. "For the crowdfunding, for the initial investments. You gave us media responsibility." That was the kicker. When they'd loaned Haley my college fund, they'd made her sign a stack of documents, standard for any large investment, giving them broad media responsibility and control over her brand for a period, just in case she tried to run off with the money or mess up a sponsorship. They thought they were protecting their investment. In reality, they'd signed away Haley's digital autonomy, making it legally murky for her to claim impersonation when her own family had been given a degree of control. Flynn had found those waivers and used them as a shield. They couldn't sue without admitting they'd essentially given someone, me, though they didn't know it, the legal right to manage Haley's digital presence. While they were unraveling, Flynn and I were preparing the final devastating blow. We drafted an anonymous digital press statement, carefully worded to sound like an insider with first-hand knowledge of the situation. It was released through a series of encrypted, untraceable channels, designed to go viral instantly. The statement was titled, "The Truth Behind Haley Sullivan's Comeback, a Story of Betrayal, Deception, and a Stolen Dream." It started by stating that the recent Haley Sullivan content was not created by Haley herself, but by the true creator of the recent Haley Sullivan podcast episodes. It then laid out my version of the story, cold and factual. It detailed how Sloane Sullivan, 22, had her entire college fund, meant for Columbia Law School, loaned by her father, Bowen Sullivan, 52, to her cousin, Haley Sullivan, 23. It included specific dates and amounts, pulled directly from my dad's bank statements that I had quietly accessed months ago, showing the transfers to Haley's account. It highlighted the $17.32 left in my fund. It then explained how Haley had squandered the money on a failed podcast, and how the recent comeback was a meticulously planned operation by the true creator to expose the family's favoritism and Haley's entitlement. It detailed the creation of the Voices Unfiltered nonprofit trust, explaining that all the new revenue, including the massive beauty brand deal, was legally bound to the trust, untouchable by Haley or her family. It highlighted the irony. Haley was now generating significant income for a charity she couldn't benefit from, all while believing she was making a personal comeback. The statement concluded with a scathing indictment of Bowen and Poppy, 47, for their complicity and their willingness to sacrifice one child's future for another's fleeting fame. It included snippets of their gushing group chat messages, proving their knowledge and approval of the loan. Flynn hit send. Within minutes, the internet exploded. News outlets, gossip blogs, and social media accounts picked up the story. The phrase "Influencers Podcast Trust Frozen," amid fraud investigation, insider reveals explosive truth, flashed across every major news aggregator. The fraud investigation part was a bit of a stretch, but the legal structure of the trust meant that with the public revelation, the funds would immediately be frozen pending an audit to ensure they were being used for their stated charitable purpose, effectively locking Haley out. My phone started ringing again, this time with unfamiliar numbers. Journalists, lawyers. I ignored them all. I just sat in my quiet apartment, watching the headlines scroll by, a profound sense of calm washing over me. The unraveling had begun. The day after Flynn, 25, released the anonymous press statement, the internet became a wildfire of outrage. Haley Sullivan, 23, wasn't just trending, she was a trending disaster. Every major news outlet, every gossip blog, every social media platform was dissecting the story. Influencers Podcast Trust Frozen. Amid fraud investigation, insider reveals explosive truth had been just the beginning. Now, new allegations swirled, fueled by the detailed information in the press statement. The beauty brand immediately pulled their sponsorship, citing unforeseen ethical concerns. The talent agency dropped Haley like a hot potato. The Voices Unfiltered Trust, now under intense scrutiny, had its funds frozen pending a full audit, effectively cutting off any access Haley might have dreamed of. The money was safe, legally bound, and completely out of her reach. The comment sections were brutal. People who had once praised her authenticity now condemned her as a fraud and a scammer. The story of the stolen college fund, the 1732, became a viral meme, a symbol of entitled influencer culture. Shiloh Nichols, 19, the naive fan who had asked the fateful question on the live stream, posted a tearful TikTok video expressing her devastation and anger at being lied to and manipulated. Her video alone got millions of views, adding fuel to the fire. My father, Bowen Sullivan, 52, was forced to step down from his company. The board, facing immense public pressure and a sudden drop in stock value due to his association with the scandal, gave him no choice. His carefully cultivated image as a respectable businessman was shattered. Poppy Sullivan, 47, Haley's mother, disappeared entirely from social media. Her last post was a photo of her perfectly manicured garden, now inundated with angry comments and accusations. The family group chat, once so vibrant with their self-congratulatory messages, fell silent. I watched it all unfold from my small apartment, a quiet, almost detached observer. The exhaustion of working 2 jobs and running this elaborate charade was immense, but the satisfaction was deeper. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. They had underestimated me, dismissed me, and now they were paying the price. Then, an unexpected email landed in my inbox. It was from Ella Douglas, 56, the law school admissions counselor from Columbia. I'd sent her a follow-up email a few weeks ago, explaining my financial difficulties, without going into details, of course. The subject line read, "Scholarship Offer, Columbia Law." My heart leaped into my throat. I opened it, my hands trembling. It was a full-ride scholarship based on exceptional academic merit, demonstrated resilience in the face of adversity, and a compelling personal narrative. The email subtly referenced the recent events and the ethical watchdog role I had apparently played, without explicitly naming the scandal. It was clear they had put 2 and 2 together, or at least appreciated the public exposure of financial malfeasance. My anonymous press statement had inadvertently made me a hero in certain circles. I stared at the screen, tears blurring my vision. Not tears of sadness, but of overwhelming relief and a profound sense of vindication. All those sleepless nights, all the bitterness, all the calculated risks, it had paid off. My dream, which had been snatched away, was now within reach, secured by the very chaos I had orchestrated. I called Flynn. "It worked," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "The scholarship. I got it." "I knew you would," he said, and I could hear the genuine pride in his voice. "You earned this, Sloan." "One last thing," I told him. "The final post, the statement from the real creator." We drafted it together. It was short, concise, and utterly damning. It confirmed that I, Sloan Sullivan, was the true creator of the recent Haley Sullivan podcast content. It reiterated the facts of the stolen college fund, the trust, and the family's complicity. It ended with a simple, chilling statement. This was not about fame. It was about justice. And now, I'm moving on. We scheduled it to go live just as I was leaving. The next morning, I packed my single suitcase. My apartment, stripped bare, felt lighter, freer. I was 22, and I was finally leaving for law school. I had a bus ticket to New York, a full scholarship, and a clean slate. I walked to the bus station, the early morning air crisp and cool. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was the final post, going live. I watched the first few comments roll in, a mix of shock, admiration, and outrage. My name, Sloan Sullivan, was now trending. Just as I boarded the bus, finding my seat by the window, my phone buzzed again. A direct message. Not from a journalist, not from a family member. It was from Haley. "Haley, Sloan, we need to talk. Meet me." I stared at the message, a strange mix of anticipation and finality washing over me. The bus pulled away from the curb, heading east. The bus pulled away, the city lights blurring into streaks outside the window. My phone buzzed again, Haley's direct message still on the screen. "Haley, Sloan, we need to talk." Meet me. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to just let her sink into the oblivion she'd created for herself. But the other part, the part that had meticulously planned every single step of this revenge, knew I needed to see her face. I needed to see the culmination of my work. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the years of being overlooked, of being the smart girl who figured things out, while Haley got everything handed to her. This was the final act. I texted her back, "Where?" She suggested a quiet diner in a neutral part of New York City, not far from where my bus would arrive. It was a few days before my law school orientation, giving me just enough time to settle into my new tiny dorm room before the meeting. I agreed. When I walked into the diner, Haley was already there, hunched over a cup of coffee, looking utterly miserable. She was still 23, but the carefully constructed influencer facade was gone. Her hair was limp, her eyes tired and red-rimmed. She wore a plain hoodie, no makeup, a stark contrast to the perfectly curated images I'd been posting of her online for weeks. The public humiliation had clearly taken its toll. She looked up as I approached, her gaze wary. Sloane. Her voice was flat, devoid of its usual breathy affectation. I slid into the booth opposite her. Haley. We sat in silence for a moment, the clatter of plates and low hum of conversation filling the void. Then she pushed her coffee cup away, her voice barely a whisper. Was it worth it? I met her gaze, unflinching. Was what worth it, Haley? My college fund? Your fake fame? Or this? I gestured vaguely around the diner, encompassing the wreckage of her public life. She flinched. All of it. Ruining my life. Ruining Dad's life. Poppy's. I didn't ruin your life, Haley. You did that when you squandered my future on a vanity project, I stated, my voice calm, almost clinical. I just accelerated the process. You wanted fame. I gave it to you. You wanted attention. You got it. You got the sponsorships, the viral moments, the headlines. I just made sure none of it benefited you personally. And then I made sure everyone knew the truth. But why? She pleaded, her voice cracking. We're family. Family? I scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping me. Family doesn't steal one person's life savings to fund another's delusions. Family doesn't play favorites so blatantly that one child is invisible. You got fame. I got justice. We both played roles, Haley. You just didn't realize yours was the one of the unwitting puppet. Her eyes welled up, but no tears fell. Poppy's in debt. She put money into my podcast too, you know. And Dad had to step down. His credit's ruined. They blame you, Sloane. They say you turned on family. I leaned back, crossing my arms. They blame me? Of course they do. It's always easier to blame the person who pulls back the curtain than to admit you were the one putting on the bad show. I didn't turn, Haley. I just stopped holding the weight of your lies. I stopped being the quiet, reliable one who would figure something out while you burned through everything. She looked away, defeated. I thought I was going to make it big. I was going to pay you back. No, you weren't, I said, cutting her off. You were going to make more excuses. You were going to find another time-sensitive opportunity to drain whatever was left. You always do. And Dad and Poppy would have let you because you're their star. The silence stretched between us again, heavier this time. She had nothing left to say. No more fake remorse, no more delusional plans, just the raw, exposed reality of her downfall. I stood up, pushing my chair back. I have to go. My orientation starts soon. Haley looked up, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. Resentment? Understanding? I didn't care. Goodbye, Haley, I said. I walked out of the diner, leaving her alone with her coffee and her broken dreams. The New York City streets were bustling, full of life, full of possibilities. I was 22, and I was finally starting my life on my own terms. The scholarship was real, the law school acceptance was real, and the future was mine. Revenge doesn't heal betrayal. It doesn't magically erase the sting of being discarded or the years of feeling second best, but sometimes it balances the equation. It forces those who took to face what they've lost, and it allows those who were wrong to reclaim what was theirs. And a walking away, knowing I had done exactly that, felt like the purest form of justice I could ever have.